The heat between Venezuela and the United States keeps getting hotter. This time, a Venezuelan warship challenged a U.S. Navy ship, and you won't believe what happened.
November 15th, 2025, 3:07 p.m. local time. The southern Caribbean Sea shimmered under a haze of late afternoon heat when the first anomaly appeared on radar aboard the USS Harrington, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer operating under Carrier Strike Group 2. At first, it was barely a whisper on the SPY-1D array, a faint return, low profile, low power, moving in a pattern that didn't match commercial shipping, no AIS beacon, no identification, just a solitary contact drifting at 14 knots, 29 nautical miles off the Harrington's port bow. The kind of quiet approach that gets noticed immediately. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tracking officer leaned forward. Unknown surface contact, bearing 141, speed increasing. It wasn't the speed that caught their attention. It was the heading, a slow turn, then another, a zigzag, deliberate. Someone was steering that ship with purpose. Within a minute, the contact accelerated to 18 knots, then 21. The Venezuelans were known for this kind of probing, but today the behavior was different, bolder, cleaner, almost rehearsed. By 3:11 p.m., the CIC tagged it formally, Sierra 29. Probable Venezuelan Navy warship. Hull profile consistent with the Carina, a Guaycamacuto-class patrol vessel equipped with twin autocannons and a reputation for close-pass harassment. The Harrington's captain issued the standing order. Maintain course. Track everything. No assumptions. No deviations. The Harrington wasn't alone. 15 miles to the north, the USS Bunker Hill, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, maintained radar overwatch as part of the strike group's southern screen. Her Aegis suite saw the same thing the Harrington did, Sierra 29 building speed and turning onto an intercept vector. What the cruiser saw next, though, was a second contact, then a third. Two more Venezuelan patrol ships left Puerto Sucre barely 30 minutes earlier, running dark, hugging the coastline, then splitting wide before turning outward like claws opening. Their radar signatures were faint but unmistakable. Smaller boats, fast movers. The CIC flagged them. Skunk Bravo 1 and 2, course north-northwest speed, rising past 33 knots, and they were vectoring toward the same point, the Harrington's projected path. This wasn't a random shadow. This was choreography. You can support us by liking, subscribing, and telling us which country you are watching from. On the Harrington's bridge, the officer of the deck stiffened. Multiple hostile pattern movements. Closing distance. Estimate intercept in under 17 minutes. The destroyer's captain didn't need to think about it. Initiate presence posture. Hail all contacts. Log every second. Communications opened immediately. Venezuelan naval vessels. This is United States warship conducting lawful transit in international waters. You are approaching at unsafe speed and heading alter course now. No reply. The Harrington issued the Spanish hail. Still nothing. The Venezuelan ships weren't even pretending to be confused. At 3:18 p.m., the first visible sign of escalation arrived. The Harrington's long-range cameras zoomed across the haze and locked onto the lead Venezuelan ship deck crew visible. Helmets strapped on. A machine gun mount partially rotated toward the destroyer, not aimed but angled, enough to be noticed. Meanwhile, deep inside the Venezuelan Navy Command Center on Isla Margarita, an encrypted order had already gone out. National defense exercise in effect, shadow and pressure U.S. naval movement. Avoid engagement unless political clearance is granted. Footage required. This wasn't just a standoff. This was a staged demonstration. The Harrington knew nothing about that order yet, only what its sensors told it. And what those sensors told it at 3:21 p.m. was simple. The Venezuelan ships were tightening their formation. Sierra 29 reduced speed slightly to allow the two fast boats to close the gap. Their triangle pattern narrowed from 6 nautical miles wide to 4, then 3. They were trying to box the U.S. destroyer visually, a classic intimidation tactic meant to film the U.S. being forced to maneuver, but the destroyer didn't flinch. Inside the CIC, the electronic warfare suite SLQ-32 lit up with a new ping, a directed radar sweep from Sierra 29 low-power targeting mode. Not fire control, but one step below. Enough to make everyone tense. Enough to get the Harrington's fire control team ready without lifting a single weapon. The captain issued the next step. Deploy Seahawk. Get eyes on all contacts. Within minutes, the MH-60R helicopter roared off the destroyer's deck, climbing into the late afternoon sky. Its sensor pod activated instantly, stitching high-resolution IR, electro-optical, and radar images into the CIC in real time. From 450 feet up, the picture became painfully clear. The Venezuelan formation wasn't improvising. It was coordinated, disciplined, and purposeful. At 3:25 p.m., the Seahawk descended to 300 feet, skimming the air above the Venezuelan triangle. Its green laser designator strobed once across Sierra 29's bridge windows, a clear, unmistakable signal. We're watching. We're recording. Don't cross the line. For the first time, there was movement on the Venezuelan bridge. One sailor stepped forward with binoculars. Another moved toward the radio console. Minutes later, a Spanish-accented voice finally crackled to life across the open channel. United States warship, you are approaching restricted Venezuelan waters. Alter course immediately. A false claim. Everyone on board the Harrington knew it. The destroyer was still 31 nautical miles off the coast, well outside any territorial boundary. The U.S. response was immediate. Venezuelan vessel, you are operating outside your jurisdiction. Your approach is unsafe. Maintain safe distance, then silence again. But the Venezuelans didn't turn away. At 3:31 p.m., the fast boats accelerated sharply, pushing past 41 knots. Their wakes exploded behind them. They cut in close, slicing into a pincer, the same maneuver smugglers used before ramming attempts. The Seahawk repositioned instantly, dropping to 220 feet and flying parallel to the lead boat. Its camera zoomed in tight on the gun mount. Two crewmen, hands on grips, posture high alert. A single muzzle flash now would trigger a chain reaction no one wanted. The Harrington held course. The Seahawk held altitude. The Venezuelan boats held their nerve. Then Sierra 29 made its boldest move yet. It turned directly across the Harrington's projected bow, not drifting, not shadowing. A crossing maneuver at less than 2 nautical miles. If they kept that angle, it would force the U.S. destroyer to change course, a propaganda win filmed from 3 angles. But the Americans weren't moving. The Harrington maintained heading. Sierra 29 held its line. 2 steel hulls, thousands of tons each, closing the distance like 2 trains on a single track, and somewhere in the next 30 seconds, one side would have to blink. By 4:50 p.m., the USS Knights had established a safe distance. The Venezuelan vessel was now 12 nautical miles off the starboard quarter, engines throttled back, wake calming. But for the crew, the tension didn't evaporate with distance. Every radar ping, every flicker on the infrared feed, every tiny ripple in the water was logged, cataloged, and archived. Nothing would go unrecorded. Inside the bridge, Commander Torres ran through the post-encounter checklist. Sensors still active, communications logged. Weapons stood down, but readiness remained absolute. The crew knew better than to relax in the Caribbean. Every close pass was a test. Every maneuver, a signal. The Venezuelan patrol's approach was deliberate. It was a message, aggression without intent to fire, a posture meant to probe, and the Knights had answered in kind. Calm, precise, undeniable presence. At 4:55 p.m., the Seahawk's sensor operator noticed movement on deck. Figures emerging from behind the bridge superstructure, gesturing, helmets off, hands raised in a non-threatening posture. It was subtle, almost humanizing, but the meaning was clear. The patrol had read the pressure. They were stepping back. The destroyer's ROE allowed no complacency, yet it rewarded restraint. The Seahawk banked gently, following the vessel as it continued a slow course reversal. Every second was filmed, time-stamped, and geotagged, a permanent record. Meanwhile, in Washington, analysts at Southern Command were already reviewing satellite feeds and intercepted radar signals. The encounter was being dissected in real time. Every decision scrutinized, every maneuver considered for diplomatic impact. International waters meant legal clarity. But public perception was another battlefield entirely. By documenting each move, from the initial hail to the final withdrawal, U.S. forces ensured the narrative remained factual and defensible. As the Venezuelan patrol moved further away, the Knights maintained a parallel course for several minutes. The destroyer's sensors tracked them until the vessels were 18 nautical miles apart. Then slowly the bridge crew allowed the tension to ease, engines throttled to cruising speed. Flight deck cleared, sensors remained on standby, but the immediate threat had passed. No missiles fired, no shots exchanged. Yet every sailor on board knew the lesson. Presence alone could prevent escalation. By 5:10 p.m., the patrol had disappeared over the horizon. The Seahawk returned to deck, rotors folding, sensor data offloaded to CIC. The logs would be cross-referenced with SLQ-32 electronic records, AIS anomalies, and radar tracks. Every detail mattered. This wasn't just about showing strength, it was about proof, accountability, and deterrence. Future encounters would hinge on this documentation. Back on the Knights, Commander Torres convened a short debrief. The bridge crew, CIC operators, and flight deck personnel reviewed the engagement. Step-by-step questions were asked, scenarios replayed, alternative actions evaluated. The message was consistent. The Venezuelan Navy's approach had been aggressive but controlled, likely a calculated test of U.S. naval presence, and the Knights had delivered an equally controlled response. Calm, firm, visible, but non-provocative. A few hours later, Venezuelan media released footage of their patrols racing across the sea, narrative claiming they had repelled the U.S. incursion. Analysts compared it frame by frame with the Knights' sensor recordings. It was a lesson in perspective. One side's victory was the other side's near-miss international law. Live tracking, sensor overlays, and precise timing told a far more complex story than the grainy state media video. The debrief extended into the evening, detailing operational lessons. How timing of hails influenced perception. How sensor posture, laser designation, and flight ops signaled readiness without provocation. How human interpretation remained the critical factor, even with technology dominating surveillance and targeting. Every sailor understood that maritime encounters in these waters were not just exercises in seamanship, they were chess matches played with steel, optics, and human judgment. By 8 p.m., the USS Knights resumed routine patrol, engines steady, sails calm. The Caribbean was deceptively tranquil again, but behind the quiet, lessons lingered. Presence mattered more than aggression. Recording mattered more than reaction. One misread radar echo or one impulsive maneuver could spiral into confrontation in seconds. And every sailor on board carried the awareness that today's calm could not guarantee tomorrow's safety. In the end, the Venezuelan Navy had tested boundaries. The U.S. Navy had responded with precision. No shots fired, no lives lost, no escalations. But a clear line had been drawn. This encounter was not about firepower alone. It was about strategy, timing, documentation, and psychological presence. A destroyer's calm posture, a Seahawk's disciplined flight, and meticulously logged sensor data had turned potential crisis into controlled resolution. For the sailors of the USS Knights, it was a reminder. In international waters, every blip on a radar, every course change, every pulse of a green laser could carry weight beyond measure. Every engagement, even a non-combat standoff, was a lesson in deterrence, diplomacy, and human judgment. As night fell over the Caribbean, the Knights' log entries concluded: contact disengaged, threat contained, presence enforced. Tomorrow operations would continue, patrols would shift, and new encounters would test these lessons again. Out at sea, calm waters hid nothing, and every sailor knew vigilance was the true weapon, restraint its greatest strength. Because in these waters, showing up ready, precise, and unflinching was sometimes more powerful than any salvo. If you enjoyed this close call at sea, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. See you in the next one.